Hi guys, i9-12900HK here again. First of all, thank you so much for your support. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. So before I proceed with the video, I would like to appeal to you to watch the whole video because you will discover very precious information here and there. So please watch the whole thing. So today we will focus on solving the performance and temperature issues of the Alienware X17R2. These solutions should have already been done by Dell, honestly, but it is what it is. It is also well known that the top model, which has the Core i9-12900HK, has severe throttle and thermal issues. I've spent sleepless nights trying to fix this problem. And finally, I managed to fix this issue to an extent that allows for very good performance while keeping the laptop at reasonable to very good temperatures. It should be noted, however, that I applied liquid metal to my CPU. If you want to do this, guys, I will show you how to do that in that tutorial video. So then, let's start. To fix the problem, you have to do following. Number 1. Apply liquid metal to the CPU. Second, undervolting optimization with throttle stop. Third, change a few settings in Windows. I will go through every single point meticulously with you so that you can enjoy the brute performance of this, let's say, overpriced laptop. Things like this, as I said before, should have already been done by Dell. But it is what it is. And fortunately for you guys, I have worked out the solution to the puzzle. So enjoy. Chapter 1. Applying liquid metal. If you want to follow the procedure in full, check out my video on it. I will briefly summarize it here again for you guys. Step 1. Carefully unscrew the motherboard. Step 2. Place the motherboard on an anti-static surface, wooden table, etc. Step 3. Remove the heat pipe by respecting the unscrewing order from 1 to 7 and from 7 to 1 respectively, as I show you in the video. This is the most important thing to pay attention to in this whole procedure. If you do not pay attention, you will bend the heat pipe. And then if you do so, the heat pipe will not be flat. And if the heat pipe is not flat, it won't make very good contact, or it won't make any contact at all to the CPU surface. Step 4. Do not use isopropyl alcohol to remove the element 31 from the CPU. Otherwise, it will liquefy and you will be doing a mess on the main board, potentially shorting out components and frying out the whole main board. Use acetone instead. Acetone is safe to use. Step 5. Apply the liquid metal. And step 6 is, as you might think, reassemble everything. Let's go to chapter 2, undervolting and optimization with throttle stop. Before we start the optimization though, we have to press the function and F1 keys on the Alienware keyboard to enter the high performance mode. So let's do this right now. That's the reason why I moved my camera on the left side so you guys can see the notification on the right side, which will pop up right now after pressing function and the F1 key. So it was enabled. So let's click again. And now we see that it is enabled. So this means that after you enabled it, the Alienware Command Center will automatically put the system into full speed and high performance power mode. So, and how do you know it's activated? It's just so simple. And again, it took me about 2 to 3 weeks to find this out. So you close the Alienware Command Center, you wait a couple of seconds, then you open the Alienware Command Center again. Again, this is the message I told you about. Just skip. And now on the top corner, you will see a black G. If you hover over it, you will see a message which says your system is currently in high performance mode. Pressing G key combination again will return the system into normal operating mode. So now you know that your system is in high performance mode. So after we have done this, we can use ThrottleStop to undervolt and optimize the CPU. So let's now minimize that. Double click on ThrottleStop. And on the main page, you will find several entries. I will explain each setting in detail so you understand what you're changing and also why we are doing this. On the top, we find the power option of Windows. These plans are the same that you will find in Windows. So to verify that, we can, oh, actually I had this on my desktop. So you see, the same, like balance, high performance, power saver. This is a special mode of ThrottleStop, I think, which is not included in the Windows settings. Yes. So, and this high performance mode will actually be activated when you press the function and F1 keys. So just to verify that, so I will press function and F1. I will refresh the page and you will see that, let's go back, let's go to power options. Just wait a second. Let's go to balance mode and you see it's gone. It's gone and you cannot activate it on yourself unless you press function and F1 keys. This is the biggest bogus thing I've ever seen on a laptop design. It's just so confusing. I mean, there are several tutorials on the internet how you can activate the ultimate power plan, but this does not work with this laptop. I don't know why. Maybe it's written in the BIOS or in the chipset itself, but you cannot activate it, the ultimate power plan by yourself. You can't do that. Just to show you, we will do this right now. So let's go to Google. So we go to CMD, command prompt, run as administrator, and paste the command and press enter. Now it says that it was or has been activated, but in reality, if you go then into all the power options, you won't find it. You won't find it unless you press function at F1. You see how it popped up automatically? High performance mode enabled. So this is something to note. Okay, let's go back to throttle stop. So again, we choose high performance because we want the highest performance possible. Below that is clock mode, and this describes to what percentage we want to use the CPU. Since we want to use the whole CPU, we go to 100. So in reality, we don't even have to check the box because it's always activated to 100%. There is a quirk though. If you don't want to use the Intel Boost technology, you have to choose 99%, which on the other hand, you can also change it here also. You go here, then you will see here maximum power, minimum power process. So if you go here to 99 and also to 99 here, you will deactivate the Intel Power Boost technology. But since we want to use that, we leave it at 100%. Okay. So now the next option is set multiplier. So in this setting, you can change the CPU multiplier, which means that you can change the speed or gigahertz of the CPU. And this option only works if you have disabled the Intel Turbo Boost technology in the BIOS. However, this option is obsolete since modern CPUs no longer work with this multiplier. So it's also disabled by default. So speed shift EPP. So speed shift EPP is a software / Windows side regulation of the CPU speed. It automatically detects, depending on the workload, if and by how much the CPU should be down or up-regulated. It's a value that determines how often your CPU stays in its highest powered state, C states. And a CPU has many C states. From sleeping, let's say, to the always active state, always in power mode, always vigilant. And this settings also modifies by the Windows Power Profile, which set values slower than 60 for the highest performance possible. So, and I will tell you now why I have deactivated it. So, as I said, higher values are more efficient and lower power consumption. Lower values, or even better, if you deactivate it, you will have more power consumption, but also higher performance. So, and the next setting is power saver. As the name implies, you can use this option to save power. Here, if you activate this one, it will also be activated in the Windows option. Disable Turbo disables Intel Turbo Boost, but note that this option works only in conjunction with your BIOS. If you want to really deactivate Turbo Boost technology, you have to do this in the BIOS settings. So BD Procard. BD Procard stands for Bidirectional Processor HUD. And this is something that underclocks the CPU when the temperatures are too high to help run the CPU in safe environment. It is recommended not to disable it, as you might get high temps and high clock speeds, which will ultimately burn your CPU. And this is also the reason why you cannot deactivate it on a laptop. I think that on desktops you can actually disable it, but I would not recommend that either. And as I said, BD Procard is a system that some laptops use when the CPU will be throttled when another component, such a GPU, reaches a set temperature, even if the CPU itself is not hot to the point of throttling. Taskbar means when you minimize your windows, throttle stop will go into the taskbar. Log file is very good for diagnostic, and it will automatically create a logging file with all your datas. So after it, you can diagnose your problems if you have any problems. So we leave it off, I don't need that. And speed step. So this is something that it's very confusing, and I will try my best to explain it to you as clearly as possible. So let's start the other way around. If you want your processor to always offer maximum performance, you can disable this technology, which is always enabled by default somehow. This technology allows the system to dynamically adjust the operating voltage and frequency of the processor cores, reducing power consumption and heat generated. By reducing the voltage and speed of the processor, consumption is also reduced and therefore less noise and less heat is generated by the laptop. This is, of course, a dynamic technology that works automatically when the system is in idle and restores normal values as soon as high performance is required. This is all done automatically and dynamically so that the processor identifies the workload by itself and reduces its speed and voltage when idle to reduce consumption and the heat generated. This is really an advantage, especially for users who are concerned about these two factors. So to summarize it, all the things I said mean just two things. If you aren't doing anything, if the CPU is just in idle, if you just don't do anything, speed step will down regulate your CPU. If you all of a sudden you open up Cinebench and start the benchmark, which requires 100% full workload, fully stressing the CPU, speed step will automatically identify it and up-regulate the CPU speed, voltage, core, everything. So it's just a watchdog which knows what you're doing and respectively down-regulating or up-regulating your CPU. Down here we have C1E. So C1E is a C state. It's like what I've told you before is a state in which CPUs can go into depending on the workload you have. And C1E, if it's activated, it clocks the processor down when it's not under load. So in other words, it's a power saving feature in Intel chips. Enabling C1E will allow the operating system to send a halt command to the CPU when inactive. This halt state reduces both the processor's voltage and multiplier so that it consumes less power and runs cooler. As you can see, this is almost the same thing at speed step, but the C states operate on a higher priority. The aim of C1E, if it's activated, is to send a command to the CPU which says, hey, I'm not required to give my full potential. You can go and chill out. And so the CPU goes into I'm chilling mode, so to speak. So that's also the reason why I keep it activated, because I don't want the CPU to always be on full throttle even though I'm doing nothing. So I leave it on. Same with CIE. So it means that it can change its states. It can go from chill mode to full power. On top means that the windows will be always on top, covering other programs. More data means that the data will be refreshed more frequently and much faster. This is good, so I leave it on. Then we go into the fully integrated voltage regulator windows. Here you can set parameters. So now let's go to the fully integrated voltage regulator windows. Here you can choose many different presets. I have the performance mode, extra turbo voltage. I'm not sure why this is gray, so I will skip it. Non-turbo ratio. This is the setting that I told you, the multiplier. You can change it here. So if you deactivate the Intel Turbo Boost technology, you can actually change your multiplier here on the top right corner. You see, it's always changing. And it's changing because Turbo Boost technology is on. It's always changing its turbo ratio. If you deactivate the turbo ratio, you can change it here. So it's fixed then. Turbo overclocking unlimited. Yes, performance cores. Here you can change the performance and efficiency cores since I have the 12th gen Intel. And this only works with the 12th gen core. So here you can change the ratios. I have put mine to 46, 46, 44, 44, 40, 40. So this means most people get this wrong, so I will tell you exactly how this works. So this CPU has 6 performance cores and 8 efficiency cores. So 46 means 4.6 gigahertz speed if the program or app, whatever you're using, game, doesn't matter. If it uses only one core, then the speed will go up to 4.6 gigahertz. The same with 2 cores. If an application uses primarily 2 cores, the speed goes up to 4.6 gigahertz and so on. If you use 3 cores, it goes to 4.4 gigahertz and so on. If the application uses 6 fully performance cores, then all other cores go up to 4.0 gigahertz, as we will see then when we run the benchmark. So, and since there is no 7 and 8th cores, I leave it to 0. Same as the efficiency cores. 255 means that if you use all the cores, it goes up to 3.8 gigahertz. So it's the same like here. You see, this is like a shortcut. If you want all cores to be 4.8, just click here. Or if you want all cores to be 5.1, click here. And the same with the efficiency cores. Now, this is the window for undervolting. So these are the different type of things you can change and regulate. So this is the overall CPU core. Now, if you have an HK processor, which is unlocked, then you can change almost everything. I'm not sure if you can do this also on non-K processors, because I read something on forums that the newest generation is able to change the cores even though it is non-AK version, but I'm not sure about that. So originally this is deactivated, so you activate it and you want to go to adaptive. And you set on the offset voltage -125. I've tried many other settings, and for me, for this chipset, the maximum offset voltage is -125 millivolts. For me, this is the threshold where the CPU doesn't crash and where I won't get any blue screen. So for me, it's 125. And this is also a trial and error process. I mean, it could be that your CPU is good with -140. I mean, it's great. I'm very happy for you. Go ahead and try it and see what it does. So it's, as I said, trial and error. You can start with maybe -70 to -75. Then, yeah, can start with with 75 and press then apply. Then you go to the next one, CPU Pcache, and try to do all of this 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the same offset voltage. You won't change the system agent. This will be automatically regulated from Windows. So you change the CPU core, the CPU Pcache, Intel's GPU. I mean, I've heard a lot of stories that you don't have to change the integrated Intel graphics if you don't use it, but I do this regardless, just to be on the safe side. And I've never had any issues with that either. So I change the offset voltage also, even though it's not active. So as you can see, P core is -125, Pcache is 125, Intel GPU is -125, and so on. And as I said, you want to keep all the 5 at the same offset voltage. This is the cache ratio, the minimum and maximum value. You want to keep this one, the right side, the same as your lowest settings here. So sleep defaults means when you reboot your system, everything will be cleared and be at default values if you activate this one. we deactivate it since we want the settings to be always as default. Now we go here to AWX offset. If you use the AWX offset instruction on benchmarks or programs, you can use an offset here. Offset means that whatever value you choose here will be the offset between your AWX offset program and also the ratios. Thermal velocity boost. Some newer i7, i9 processors use thermal velocity boost as a mean to increase clock speed when there's more thermal headroom and decrease it slightly when the temperatures are rising. It may be a good thing for a user, but if the temperature always on the high side while gaming, this does only equate to lower performance. So you can choose to disable it. It's somehow very confusing, so it's disabled. So next one is spring downwind. This took me about 1 or 2 weeks to fully understand it because it's a little bit complicated. So to fully understand it, you have to know that there is a thing that it's called cache. And the cache speed has to be almost the same as the normal speed of your CPU cores. And exactly this is doing the option if you activate it. If you activate it, the cache will always be, I believe, 100 to 400 megahertz below the actual CPU core speed. So both the cache and the normal speed will be always at the same speed. If the speed difference is too high, then your computer can crash and get a blue screen. This is why we want this activated. Millivolt boost helps with undervolting to stabilize your millivolt at 400 megahertz when you underclock it. We don't need that because it's already stable enough. Vmax stress, I believe, I'm not sure, that this setting will downregulate your voltage when the CPU is fully loaded and fully working. We don't want that. We want always the highest possible voltage, so we deactivate it. Overclock, I've tried it so many times to see if there's any difference, and I haven't seen any, so I leave it unchecked. So after we've done everything, we go to apply and click OK. So now we go to the TPL. So the aim of adjusting the PL1 and PL2 and turbo time limit is to provide your CPU with more power as long as it doesn't overheat. Undervolting does greatly help with that, so keep adjusting both voltage and power until you find the perfect spot for your needs. So this means that you can set a threshold to which the CPU draws power. So my max wattage that I want the CPU to draw from is 120 watts. And by syncing both wattage to the memory, you assure that the stability is much greater than if you had it disabled. And we want clamp deactivated, because if you activate both clamp, means that the CPU will do everything it needs to keep the CPU at 120 watts power draw. But we want exactly the opposite. We want 120 watts to be drawn while having maximum performance. There's a little bit of a difference. So yes, that's all. Lock, we don't want this to lock. Lock is the same as the first thing I told you. So if you go to lock, then you will not be able to change these settings. You have to reboot your computer. And secondly, the CPU will do everything to maintain its 120 watts. So speed shift, we can deactivate this since we deactivated in the main page. This is everything at default, you don't need that. So we go to apply and go. Okay, so now we start Cinebench and let's see what we have done. So again, check if Alienware Command Center has the ultimate power. So we enable it. So now it's enabled. Let's close it, open up again. Okay. Full speed. Okay. I mean, it's activated anyways, but let's go on the safe side. Close it. Open it up again. Okay, now it's full speed, high performance, and it's also activated here. So let's start. And now you can see how much power the CPU is drawing. See, we set it to 120 watts. And the temperatures are very, very, very good. And as you can see, we have locked it to we locked it on 3.9/4 gigahertz on all cores. And this is this one here on the left side. You see, the CPU is using all cores. That's why we have 3.9/4 gigahertz on all cores. You can see that here on the top left corner, 4T. And it's this one here. See? So now we have 16,796 points. That's a very good score since I have OBS screen recording and also DaVinci Resolve. So it's a very good score. Let's go back. Let's see if we can adjust the multiplier. Let's go to 4.3. Let's see what it does. Apply, click OK. Let's start. You see, now it's going up slightly. Before it was 3.9, now it's almost 4.1. Now it will not reach 4.2 because we limited the CPU to only draw 120 watts of power. Temperatures are also good. It hasn't power or thermal throttled once. This is what we want. Just once, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, you can't have everything in life, but this is a very good score again. Let's try to go to 125 watts. Let's see how this will affect the temperature. Apply, okay. Let's go. You see now it's stable at 41 at 4.1 gigahertz. Now it hasn't throttled once. That's good. Oh, now again. Maybe 125 watts is too much. But anyhow, let's check. And here in the limits you can see the reason why it's limiting. And yeah, PR2, that's this one. It means that it's power throttling. In other words, the CPU wants to draw more to get to 4.3 gigahertz, which one we selected before, but it can't, since it's only allowed to take, or I should say to draw 125 watts. So we are restricting the power drawn of the CPU. If we go to 496, which is the maximum allowed, 95, 4095, click apply. Then we say to the CPU, okay, take how much wattage you want as long as you go to 4.3 gigahertz. But on the other hand, it can't go to 4.3 because we will reach 100 degrees in the tap of a finger. I mean, so you see it goes to 150 watts, and you see you instantly hit to 100 C. This is because we say to the CPU, okay, take how much power you want, but it can't go higher than 125, 126 because it's already at 100 C. So now I'm curious what score we get. I hope you understand this interaction between wattage, temperature, and voltage. Yeah, it's 16,614. Again, we have many background programs that are running, so the score is very good. Let's try to go back to 120. Or let's say 140 actually. I just want to see how it does. We go to apply. Okay. Let's go back here. Let's say now we want 4.2 gigahertz on all cores. Let's go. Let's see how it does. It's not good. You see, it went directly to 100 C. And you can also see here in the limit reason windows, it says thermal. Red means it's happening at this moment, the reason, and yellow means that it happened in the past. So if we clear, it goes away, but the red won't go away because it's still happening. See, it's still at 100 C. 16, 17, 90. Okay, let's go back to 4 gigs, 4 gigahertz. And we go to 120 and 120. These are the optimal settings for me. You see, no throttling, no whatsoever. Looks good to me. I think 16,500 or something like that, roundabout. Much more than I thought, 16,748. Okay, this means that we are getting performance with better thermals at the same time. What we can also do is change the efficiency cores because they are responsible for the multi-core performance. So let's say we want every course at 4 gigs. Let's go to apply. Okay. Now let's run the benchmark. Let's see how it does. And you see we see no thermals popping up, it's just the PL2. Oh, you see 16,843. So I think that's, and as a matter of fact, I just want to show you something. So now here we have the official specs of the 12900HK. And this is the official specs. So, and it says 14 cores, 6 performance core, 8 efficiency cores. Max turbo boost technology 5 GHz. Efficiency core max turbo frequency 3.8, but we pushed them to 4.0. That's good. And here is what I just want to tell you. The processor base power. So this means that normally without any turbo power boost, the CPU will have a power draw of 45 watts. And the maximum turbo power, the PL2, is 115. So let's do this as they say. 45 watts without boosting and 115 with boosting. And the turbo time limit tells you how long you want this boost to go. So we want this, let's say, for just for demonstration purpose, let's say for 20 seconds. So in other words, before starting the Cinebench benchmark, the CPU will run at 45 watts. After pressing start, it will go to 115 watts. It will draw 115 watts for 20 seconds. After 20 seconds, it will go back to 45 watts. So let's see. And as you can see here, the power draw, it's even less than 45 watts because it doesn't do anything right now. And let's press start. And it will go to 115 for 20 seconds. After that, it will go back to 45 watts. And as you see, the temperatures are amazing. And this is all with the official specs. So it's just a matter of customization. Then most people that have trouble, including myself, had really troubles with the CPU. But after optimizing, researching, you see 20 seconds have passed, and you see now it goes back to 45 watts. And also the speed, clearly. It's no rocket science, guys. The score will be low, but these temperatures are just wonderful. 12,638, and it still is better than a normal i9. This CPU is just out of this world. So, and you can use this sheet to actually as a guide, I would say. So this is the max turbo power draw. Let's change it to 120, and this one 100. So, and what we have done here in layman's term means the CPU will normally run at 100 watt power draw. As long as you don't do something heavy loaded, otherwise it will draw 120 watts for 20 seconds. Let's do this again. Start. So now it will go to 120. You see here 120 for 20 seconds, and after 20 seconds it will go back to 100 watts. I'm making this video on purpose that long so I can show you everything in great detail. You see, it went back to 100 watts. Temperatures are fantastic. Oh wow, that's a good score, 16,651. So now we revert back to my default settings, which are, yeah, here it doesn't matter. You can go sky high. So with this constellation means I want 120 watts all the time. All the time 120 watts. Doesn't matter what I do and when I do and for how long the program will run. I just want 120 flat. Apply. Okay. So we are actually 5 watts higher than the spec sheet is saying. Now we can try to disable speed step and C1E. Let's see how this will affect the performance. I will tell you in advance that doesn't make any difference, but enough talking. Let's show you this. Because now it doesn't make any difference if it's enabled or disabled. If you demand full power, speed step in C1E will recognize it automatically. Temperatures are amazing again. Great, 16,927. Amazing. So now there are some other things that you can check. If you still have lower scores, and again, I have many programs running in the background, so that's why I only have 17,000 points. If you still are not happy with your results, here are some things that you can check. So let's say you've done everything I told you and you still have bad performance and thermal issues. You can do the following. You can disable power throttling using group policy. There is this thing called power throttling in Windows 10 upwards. So we want to disable that. So to do this, we press the window key and we type gp edit group policy. Then we want to go to computer configuration, administrative templates, system, power management, and power throttle settings. So, and we want to enable it. So as you can see, if you enable this policy, power throttle will be turned off. So we want to enable it. So we apply. Okay, there's also another option to do the same. I believe if you don't have Windows 10 or Windows 11 Pro, you won't have access to the group policy editor. So there is another way to do that, which is to disable the power throttling using the registry. So do this to your own risk. I won't take any responsibility if you damage your computer. Click on the Windows symbol and type in reg edit. Good. Now you will see your registry editor. Then go to HK local machine, expand it, system, expand it. Then go to current control set, expand it, control, expand it. Then you go to the power entry, double click, right click your mouse, go to new key and name this key power throttling. I've already done this here on the top, so I will do. So after you created this new folder called power throttling, right click, new, dword, 32-bit, and you name this power throttling off, like here on the top. After you've done that, double click and write 1 in hexadecimal. Then you go OK. Close it, restart your computer. So another thing that you can do to solve these performance issues is something that is called modern standby. And this has something to do with power options. If your laptop or computer supports modern standby, you will only have the balanced power plan available by default, and you will not be able to add any other default power plan than balance. There is a workaround. So now you can see we have high performance activated, but we want to deactivate it to show you how we can actually add it by ourselves. Group policy. So let's then go to administrative templates, system. Then we go to power management again. And we go here to specify a custom active power plan. Double click. And we go to enable. And here we enter this one. I think you can do this only if you have Windows 10 Pro. Can go back. Now you see, now you have fixed it. So it's always an ultimate performance regardless what you're doing with AWCC. Yeah, this is the best thing you can do. So that's everything for today, guys. I hope you liked this video. Please share my video, comment, like, and if you want so, please subscribe to my channel.